Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and welcome to the Stewards Room, where we'll be taking a look at racing incidents submitted by you guys and trying to make a determination on who, if anyone, was at fault. There's a link in the description to submit your own clips, and feel free to check out the playlist link for more of these videos, specifically the first, which acts as a scene setter. Also keep an eye out for cards popping up on screen at the start of each segment where you can vote on who you thought was at fault for each incident. So no surprises for guessing what's first this time and what has sparked the revival of this series. The series was never dead, I always did intend to get back to it, but yeah, with all the GTA DLC and my travels, I've not had enough time to devote to it, but I should be able to bring back the this series, the Stewards Room, and we'll go through some clips. But you know, as we can see here from the latest Grand Prix, the Brazilian Grand Prix, Leclerc got up the inside of Vettel going into the first corner of the track. Vettel had the better exit coming out of the corner, and then they basically go side by side going down to the next corner of the track. So there'll be a poll in the top right hand corner of the screen. You can vote on who you thought was at fault for this incident. Was it Vettel's fault? Was it Leclerc's fault? Or was it just a racing incident? Those are basically your three options. Vote in the top right hand corner of the screen, and then we'll talk about it. As always, we'll do the voting first this time. We used to do the voting later on, but voting first, and we'll see if your thoughts match up with mine. So for me, this is clearly Vettel's fault, and mainly because he's the one that initiates the movement over to the left-hand side of the track, basically trying to bully Leclerc out of the position, and he's not allowed to do that. So here we are with the Rules of Racing document that we always have linked down below in the description, and specifically this section that I've talked about before in previous episodes, racing alongside another car. As the sporting regulations say, any driver defending his position on a straight and before any braking area may use the full width of the track during his first move, provided no significant portion of the car attempting to pass is alongside his. And it says specifically, for the avoidance of doubt, if any part of the front wing of the car attempting to pass is alongside the rear wheel of the car in front, this will be deemed to be a significant portion. So basically, as it's summarised up above as well, if two cars have any parts alongside one another, each driver must respect the space occupied by the other car. It doesn't matter which car is ahead, nor how far ahead they are. Neither driver may initiate a move into the other car. So as long as both cars have any parts of each other alongside each other, you have to keep a straight line. You can't make a move into where the other car is. Both drivers have the rights to the space that they're occupying at that time. And what's interesting is just further down below this image, it says, situations like Sebastian Vettel driving into the side of Mark Webber at the 2010 Turkish Grand Prix fall foul of this rule. Since the move happened on a straight before any braking zone or corner, Vettel is completely at fault. And it's interesting that that has been brought up in comparison to this incident. And that's because it's quite clear to see at this point, obviously, Leclerc goes to the inside to defend his position, and he leaves basically exactly enough space. So he leaves one car width in between himself and the track, and then all he does at that point is keep a straight line going on. And he's allowed to do that. He's allowed to continue driving in a straight line. Now, the thing that you need to pay attention to is Vettel's position relative to this white line. That is the edge of the track. If he was going straight, he would be following that white line on the edge of the track. But obviously, that's not what happens. You'll see that Vettel drifts over to the left, and as you can see there, even before the point of contact, he's trying to, you know, there's a definite space there where there wasn't previously. He's trying to muscle Leclerc out, but, you know, he isn't ahead. He's not allowed to do that. Leclerc is entitled to the space that he has, and he's entitled to continue going straight, as we've just seen in the rules. And Vettel decides to move into the space, and because he's not completely ahead or behind, there is parts of Leclerc's car, you know, in alongside parts of Vettel's car, because if there weren't, they wouldn't have touched. So that is entirely Vettel's fault for causing that incident. Now, it was a small, innocuous crash, really. They just touched wheels, and I guess the Ferrari tyres and suspension or whatever are made of paper, but it was a shame that it caused such a big, you know, crash. But ultimately, that is entirely on Vettel's fault. He's done exactly the same as what he did in 2010, and as the rules state, you're not allowed to do that. So that should be Vettel at fault for that one. So our next clip is a very similar situation, but there's a little bit of a difference because there's another car involved. So we've got, let's apply some names. We've got Mini Dude and Bada Mallard. So is this Mini Dude's fault? Mini Dude is right ahead, or is it Bada Mallard's fault? And he's the person who we're racing with. Vote in the top right on the poll. Those are the names that I'll use because they're both in the same car, so there's no way I can distinguish between them. Whose fault is this? Mini Dude for moving over to the right, or Bada for being in a position that he shouldn't have been in? You vote on the poll, and then it's time for me to give my thoughts. So it's probably pretty easy to understand this one, given what we've just seen from the the rules. It's the exact same rule that applies to this. You can say that there's a little bit of muddying of the waters because both of these guys are going for overtakes at this point. This guy should really be aware that he's here. I mean, you could see right there. There's an indicator showing that there's a car to the left. So this guy should also have an indicator showing that there's a car to the right, and he should also have the situational awareness to know that there's a car to his right as well. But in the heat of the battle, I guess, all he's doing is focusing on the car in front and the fact that he's got a slipstream, he's got the speed on the car in front, and he wants to, pull out and go for the overtake. But he can't do that if he's going to take space that this car has. You can only make a move, like we've just seen from the rules, on a straight. You can't move into the space occupied by another car. And obviously, as we see here, we're all going straight at this point, and he just comes across to the right to overtake the car in front, totally oblivious to the fact that we are here as the car we're riding with, and it's a complete takeout. So 100% Mini Dude's fault, that one for me. You can't just do that. You can't just, like we've just seen from the rules, if someone is alongside you, you can't just move into where their space. They have that space, you have your space, and that's what you got to do. So he should have really at that point let off the accelerator and stuck behind. So entirely Mini Dude's fault, that one. And yeah, definitely a penalty on my eyes. Hopefully you guys thought the same, but we'll see from the poll results afterwards. Okay, so clip 3. This is slightly different. All of the clips today are generally the same sort of thing, but the last two have their own nuances, and I guess all of them do. But so we're coming along here. We've got this the Audi coming up quite quickly. Supposedly the backstory is that he was put to the back accidentally or got involved in a crash early on. So he's coming up quickly and then goes for the inside corner, and then a massive crash ensues from that. So I'll slow it down for you guys to vote. Again, the poll will be in the top right hand corner of the screen. Is this the Audi's fault? Is it the Mercedes' fault, which is the car that we're just going underneath right here, or is it the Dodge Viper's fault on the left hand side there? So the car that we're riding with is obviously completely innocent in this one. So it's one of these three. We've got the Audi, we've got the Mercedes, and we've got the Dodge. Vote on the poll in the top right hand corner of the screen that should pop up. Whose fault was this? And we'll see if you guys think the same as I do. I'm not sure I've formed quite an opinion just yet. We'll see. So let's unpack it. It's obviously the Audi is coming at incredible speed. He's coming very fast at this point. Obviously, he's past the Dodge and he wants to go for an overtake on the Mercedes further up. Now, the space is there to do that. There is a car's width right here, so there's no concerns about, there not being space and he's just forcing his way through. So let's carry it on a little bit further. And at this point, we can see that the Dodge comes from the left-hand side. So he was off the track in front of this Ferrari, and he comes back onto the track here, which really, that's not the best place to do it or safest time to do it. Really, the Ferrari's doing the right thing by staying off the track because you've got a lot of high-speed cars coming down here, and he just, puts himself back onto the track. But, yeah, as we can see, the Audi goes for the inside of the Mercedes right here. and they have a little bit of contact, as you can see there. But you would also have to say that the Audi is more than halfway alongside the Mercedes. So if we continue it on, the only reason for me that this becomes more of an accident than it otherwise would have been is this contact here. So the Mercedes is obviously knocked slightly wide by the Audi going for the overtake, but then there's contact with the Dodge that has just come back onto the track, and that swings the car around into the tyre barrier on the left hand side. You know, that's what causes that. And obviously it flies up, and then we go underneath him as the car that we're riding with. So it's a tricky one to lay fault overall, because, you know, as we've seen from the Rules of Racing document, I don't need to go to it again. If you're more than halfway alongside someone, then you're entitled to some space on the inside of the corner. Having said that, the Audi is coming in at a very, very acute angle. And is he really going to get that stopped without the contact? Let's look at it at full speed. The question, I think, is mainly about whether the Audi is going to make that corner without the contact with the Mercedes. And that's a judgment call. It is a rough hit, I've got to say, by the Audi. The Dodge doesn't help matters. I think if the Dodge hadn't come back onto the track there at that point, the Mercedes wouldn't have hit the Dodge, and then it would have been, you know, he would have probably just about got away with it. But it's that second hit that really causes it. I think definitely the Mercedes isn't at fault. I don't think the Mercedes has done anything wrong by doing what he's doing. He's just kind of an innocent bystander in this. I would probably put this down to a racing incident myself. I don't think there's enough blame that you can put on any of the drivers to warrant, you know, a penalty or something like that. I think the Dodge really shouldn't be there for coming back onto the track. He should have, you know, been allowing these people to continue, because, you know, how is all of these guys meant to know that there's going to be a car just coming back out of nowhere? And although the Audi's overtake was quite harsh, I think he was getting it stopped regardless of the hit, the way that, you know, to me personally. So for me, I'm putting this down to a racing incident. I think this is just one of those things that, you know, it just happens sometimes. It's a bit of a mess at the start of a race maybe. And I think there could be any number of ways where this doesn't turn out to be so bad. It's just a kind of, the whole incident is a victim of circumstance for everybody else. So that's what I think. But as always, you know, let me know the comments down below. If you disagree with me on any of these things, it's always good to get a discussion going. But for me, it's one of those things, racing, to be honest, it's a racing incident. So final clip, we're on GTA, surprisingly for the Stewards Room. We haven't had many GTA clips these days lately, but yeah, so there's obviously a Sultan RS race, and we've got light blue Sultan going up against dark blue Sultan. Whose fault is this? Is this dark blue Sultan's fault? Is it light blue Sultan's fault? Let me know in the poll in the top right hand corner of the screen. Who do you blame for this one? Dark blue Sultan, light blue Sultan, or was it, again, you know, racing incident? That's also an option as well. So unpacking it, obviously we've got this initial incident here, which this is clearly the dark blue Sultan's fault. He should have backed out of that. So I don't think that's up for debate, and the dark blue Sultan does, you know, wait for that one as well, as you can see. Light blue Sultan gets going again, and then really, for me personally, after an incident like that, it looks like the dark blue Sultan gets a little bit of an advantage by maybe accelerating a little bit earlier after the first incident. So I would give it one or two more corners. If you're going to wait for someone and give them the position back, you know, give it one or two corners before you then go for an overtake attempt again. But I think regardless of that, just looking at this in a vacuum, I don't think there's a move on here. You know, I don't think this is a place where you're going to get an overtake done. I think this is a bit of a badly judged overtake attempt that leads to a crash that was probably to be expected by trying to go for an overtake in that kind of situation. I mean, if you look at it at this point, there's a little bit of a touch here. And then obviously the light blue Sultan jinks to the left to try and, you know, overcorrect for that. But then, you know, I don't know what the dark blue Sultan thinks is going to happen by going into this space. It's a fast chicane. Obviously the track, it goes across there like that. It's a pretty quick chicane. Going up the inside here, it's only ever going to result in a crash because it's not slow speed enough to be able to get an overtake done up the inside into a corner like this. So as we push it on, you know, the light blue Sultan is slightly wide because he's overcorrected for the initial tap. And then obviously the dark blue Sultan just launches into the side of him, launches him into the wall. And I think, you know, that is entirely the fault of the dark blue Sultan. It's not, you know, it's a bit of a ridiculous move, frankly, to be going for that there. And especially if he got a bit of an advantage by, you know, accelerating a little bit quicker from the initial crash. He's basically just taking the corner as if nobody else is there, which you can't do. You know, you've got to respect that there's somebody else there as well. So yeah, for me, dark blue Sultan at fault for that one. But obviously, as always, leave me your comments down below if you think anything differently about this or any of the clips today. So that's pretty much it for this episode. You can find in the video description all the info and links that you may need to submit your own clips. And if you'd like to support me, you can do so on Patreon by becoming a YouTube member or simply subscribing and liking the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.